Hello, and welcome to Eazi Listening, a podcast for ground transport drivers and operators. I'm Gary Jacobs, and today we're joined by Renee Rogers. She's the founder and CEO of ONO, an upcoming app for fleet owners to track and manage roadside incidents. Thanks for joining us, Renee.
Thank you for having me.
Renee Rogers is the founder and CEO of ONO, an upcoming app for fleet owners to track and manage roadside incidents. For over 8 years, she was a self-employed consultant working with small business owners to develop, analyse and realise their full potential. And before this, she was general manager of a vehicle hire company, managing 6 locations UK-wide with 500 vehicles and thousands of drivers to manage. Over 10 years ago, she worked with the bridal sector, starting as a Saturday girl in a boutique shop before working her way up to manager. She then went on to work for Bremas, a bridal software provider, as an account manager. And here, more interestingly than anything else, is that Renee studied theatre studies at the University of Kent.
It's not obvious, darling.
So, why theatre studies?
So I always wanted to be a teacher, actually, and I really wanted to do secondary education. I went for kind of drama, theatre studies, contemporary Shakespearean, classic theatre, and realised I really enjoyed like post-compulsory education. So A levels, HND, up to degree level. And I was doing that alongside managing a bridal shop, and I did that for a couple of years and then realised actually business is where my heart is. Yeah, it is. I was basically selling the idea of education to these children. I was like, I'd rather sell yachts. Like, or wedding dresses. So having started in education, I love the idea of education and travelled around the country teaching shops how to do wedding dresses, how to sell wedding dresses. And that kind of evolved into helping them with social media campaigns, recruitment. So some really great skills that have taken me through into my fleet career, which I started around 10 years ago.
Right.
Ended up getting a job 1 day a week in a fleet company, being handed a pile of parking tickets and 44 logbooks and said, get on with it, which I did. And in 6 months, doubled the fleet to 80. And within 9 years, rose it to 500 vehicles, electric vehicles, wheelchair accessible vehicles. We introduced some of the first wheelchair accessible vehicles into Manchester, Newcastle, Liverpool, Sefton, Bradford. And I managed it all from London.
So this is really the beginnings of ONO.
Absolutely it was. So as you can imagine, with 500 vehicles, the accident ratio is huge. We're talking fault, non-fault, incidents that just happen in Tesco car park, scrapes. I've had a great one where a driver fell asleep, it's not that great, and went straight into a lamppost, and there was just a lamppost dent all the way across the middle of the car, which imagine that pulling into the car park.
So really, I mean, our history in terms of insurance and accidents has been dominated by credit hire, which, as we all know, love non-fault. But I think we spoke before. You said that really that's not what a fleet owner necessarily needs. You need
Absolutely not. We care about every single incident, and when we're looking at the difference between fault, non-fault, 50-50, we have to know about every single incident that's happened on our fleet, good or bad, because the knowledge is in the understanding of what's actually happened. And what we find is drivers, when they have an accident, it's not like a retail driver. It's our own car. We can get on with our day. And if we're inconvenienced for a couple of weeks without a vehicle, then we can kind of get over that. For a commercial driver in fleet and within the taxi trade, they panic. They worry that they're going to lose their job, lose their livelihood. Their family depends on this. So they're frightened about letting us know that these incidents have happened. And as a fleet owner, I really needed to kind of help them understand that it's okay that it's your fault. It's not preferable, but we can deal with it. And let's help you get through this.
Yeah. And let's be honest, the wheels are on the road for private and public hire drivers for huge amounts of the day. These things are going to happen.
Absolutely they are. And it's about kind of, there is always an attribution of blame that has to be done. That's insurance. Somebody has to be at fault. but that doesn't mean that we can't help the process from start to finish. And as a fleet owner, for me, it's the monetary value that's going to be associated with that incident, not only for the repair costs, but also the impact that's going to have on my premium at the end of the year. And I'm very data driven. I love processes, and I really wanted to try and get a good process into the business that would allow me to understand the swings and roundabouts of fault and non-fault accidents. And there was nothing out there. So nothing that would take that incident data at the roadside and push it directly through to me as a fleet owner in real time. And that's what I needed to create.
Right.
Welcome to ONO.
And that's we really are as an industry. We are totally data driven, and I think it's easy for technology to replace. I think we were speaking before, and really, our industry is far more sophisticated than people give us credit for. And the fact that we used to do it without technology is actually the amazing thing. And to have technology to be able to do this job and to be able to do the job better. But I mean, amazed. So there was really a very big gap in the market for data-driven information to help people with claims.
Absolutely. And when going back to your point that we have in our businesses, in the taxi and private hire trade, there are these massive vats of untapped data that are sitting there, and we can use technology to kind of bring all our legacy systems together that we've been using pen and paper for, spreadsheets, online filing systems. They all house masses of information that we can utilize to help better our processes and help better our bottom line. And it's about bringing in the right technology to bring those things together and get those untapped vats of data.
And I think that with something like ONO, I mean, the drivers benefit, the operators benefit. I can't see a downside. Do the insurers benefit from it?
Absolutely. Transparency is key.
Yeah.
And we are very determined to be as impartial as possible. So we deal with any insurance company, any claims management company. So fleets are quite precious about who they use because they've got long-standing relationships with these people. We don't come in and say, right, you now must use XYZ. We go, brilliant, let's put all of your current suppliers into ONO, and we just push that data from roadside to you as the fleet owner, and you can then push it forward to whoever you want to use.
So tell us a bit more about the process of actually the development of ONO as a piece of technology, because anybody that knows this has probably heard me on social media going on about the Eazi Tax app that, as I say, accountants, we're very process driven. To adopt technology has really just been to adopt what we do anyway. But I can tell you now, the process of development is painful because we know what we want. We love our clients, we love our drivers, we know what benefits them. But actually getting technology to ape the level of care that we had was a journey. And I think the one thing I always remember, and I think everybody will recognise this, our development time, 1 month actually means 3 months and whatever you're meant to do. So maybe I'll speak in another podcast another time about the development journey of the Eazi Tax app, which is going very nicely. Thank you very much indeed. So, but God, what was the development process with ONO? Yeah.
And technology, I think you're visionary. So you have a vision. I have a vision of what I want my app to do and what I want my back-end software to do. Trying to relay that into technical terms and a language that the people that are building this can understand is the tricky bit. You almost need a handbook in the middle to kind of say, this is what I want. And then it gets translated in the middle, and then it goes to the tech team and says, this is what she means. Because it is like speaking a different language, and it's trial and error. It really is. And it's about having those people on side. I'm very lucky to have a team that are there. They understand the vision. They speak my language in the sense of what I want and what I need achieved. And they're patient with me, and they understand sometimes, okay, I said that box, but actually I didn't mean that.
you do have to learn a new language, and it's very interesting, the difference between you knowing what your client needs and to
Mm.
be able to translate that. And that is I mean, that is the process. And I found developers wanted to be helpful,
Mm.
but they sometimes gave you what they think that you wanted as opposed to what you actually
Absolutely.
wanted.
Absolutely. And what I did is I actually had an outside graphic designer design it how. So I would send these really terrible PDF PowerPoint presentations with boxes here and red arrows and the text, use this content and this copy, like to the minute detail. And then I'd send it to my graphic designer and I'd say, make this pretty, please, make this usable and how the user will see it. So they would create the UX. I would then send that to my tech team and say, I don't like these boxes. Can you make it look like this, please? And it was bridging those gaps between me as the user and how I know that I would want my fleet owners to see it. And then the tech team going, okay, we need to get that box to link to that box. That's the surprising bit, how hard that. And I'm like, well, surely it's just an input box. They're like, actually, Renee,
Yeah.
it's not. And that's £10,000, please.
It used to be, can't you just? So I've got an old Gary story actually, and people are used to old Gary stories. And I many years ago, before I haven't always been an accountant, and I'm talking many years ago. I've been an accountant for 30 years now, but I started my working life in the insurance industry. Funny enough,
Oh,
before
okay.
I
Newsflash.
yeah, I think most people know, and it's I mean, it's basically just moving numbers around a new in a different way. So it's somebody, and I worked with a marketing guy. We used to produce new insurance products. And he always used to tell me the same story, which is a company would come to him and say, right, we want to sell type of insurance to the legal industry. And they say, right, can you tell us how to market it? And he would go, okay, well, we know that from the way that people's mind works, red means legal. I mean, by the way, I don't know if this is true, but the idea that red means legal. So he would, and of course, this was. I'm that old. This is pre-internet days. So actually not pre-internet. I think Go from Veronica were around. If anybody, I've just aged myself. It was a non-graphic form of communication. I'm getting boring now, right? So
No, I'm enjoying this. Red for legal. I get
so
it.
this guy
Blue
would
for
go,
calming.
yeah, red for legal, that's a good thing, and people like this. So he would produce all the written material and the website, and it would be the right graphics, and he'd produce red, and he'd come up with this whole portfolio to sell this product. Then he'd go and sit in front of the board and give a presentation and say, right, this is this is the red, and red is something that makes people think about legal or whatever it is. And then they'd sit down and go, well, I like green. And he'd go, yeah, I know you like green, but this is red for a reason. And he said that was his journey, was not his skill in producing the marketing material. It was presenting it to the client who'd go, I like green. And I learned something which has stood me to this day, which is we don't care what I want or what you want as the client. You are producing stuff that your client wants, and you've got to get over that. But and I thought we'd left that behind, but there is actually a lot of that where people aren't thinking of what the end user actually wants. You used the term UX, user experience, which is a very big buzzword in technology. But it's actually, and I've always prided myself that we look at things from the client's point of view. So this idea, but yeah, so and it's amazing that 35 years later, people are still going, well, I like green.
Absolutely.
And
we it's I mean, today I had a meeting with an API specialist.
ooh,
Yeah, I know, and I didn't even know that was a thing. And so, and it's where I'm talking to all these different companies, and they're saying, "Oh, we really love the app and the dashboard. We'd love to be able to API into that." And I'm going, "Yeah, absolutely, we can." But then talking about it today, you have to really drill down what data sets are going to be available.
yeah,
What GDPR considerations does that have? What compliance do we need to deal with? How do we get those specialist data sets over there? And I need to name them one by one. These are massive tasks. I mean, 6 months ago, I wouldn't have even known what data set means
yeah.
in this concept. So it's a huge learning curve, and it's about having those people that have the technical skills, that have your back, and they're not just there for a payday.
Yeah.
That's really important, and that can take a little bit of fishing.
Yeah. I remember sitting down with my super tech expert, big name out to Rich Pleath, and we sat down and did a wireframe from the app that we wanted, and it was a beautiful piece of work. We sat in his back garden. Actually, I think it was the summer, and we hours and hours and hours producing the wireframe. And it's interesting because the wireframe is what you want the finished product to look like. And I remember thinking, right, that's done. What you don't realise
How long?
is the work that goes on behind to make it do what you need it to do is really where the journey is. You know, the graphics. We're very lucky. We've got our graphics and marketing stuff's done in house. Yes. But that's deciding what you want it to look like is only part of the journey. So,
and just, I mean, in regards to tech, so in my system, everything, I wanted individual boxes. So you have like the graphic of gradient color behind all the boxes. Now, I get a call from my tech team and go, do you really want them separate? I'm like, of course I do. I want all separate, lovely boxes, individual. They're like, but Renee, do you know how much hard work it is to have those boxes separate on a screen? It's much easier to have them all contained in one box. And I'm like, I'm a bit, I like green. Green. So I'm like, I really would like them all separate. So then, bless the tech team, they have to go, okay, she's insistent on this one. And I'm glad I was, and it's all worked out good in the regards of the aesthetics now. But on some things, I've had to say, no, that's fine. Do it all in one box. Yep. Let's drip that for the MVP. And on other areas, you really want to kind of stand your ground a bit, because you know that long term, it's best to get it done now rather than have to go back and do it again in the future.
I think it comes down to, I know that we have these issues with data capture, which is the basis of my business. I always remember sitting down with the people that we've been working with, a fantastic company actually called TaxiMate. That's we're using a data capture engine that they've developed. But when we first of all looked to sort of do it ourselves, and by the way, just for those that aren't data capture, as an accountant, we can't do your accounts, we can't do your tax returns unless you tell us what you earned and what you spent. That's all it really is. And once upon a time, people used to turn up at our door with a shoebox full of receipts. Now people
do that anymore.
Yes, they still do. Yes, I'm sure David will tell us, and our Mark, the tax manager, will tell us that yes, they still do turn up at the door.
I've still got some actually from my travels. I've got a whole folder of receipts that I'm about to give Mark. So it's going to be very.
But the idea is, we've got Making Tax Digital coming in the next 18 months, where HMRC won't allow you. Well, no matter if somebody still turns up with a box of receipts, that's fine. But we have to turn it into something that HMRC can drill down into. And really, what we're introducing is a system where if you can use the camera on your phone, then you can capture the data. That's the thing. Yeah. But even with the data capture, when we first looked at it, I said to people, you're a driver, you're working a long shift, you're taking people from A to B, and you've got a glove compartment full of invoices and receipts, and you're downloading maybe from your apps or from your operator bits and pieces, so we can grab hold of some of it. But I just need a page to come up and say, how much did you earn? What did you spend your money on? And I was trying to explain to the developer, by the way, I'm not anti our developers, we're just sharing our journey. But I said, you're a driver. All you need to tell me is what have you spent, what your expenses were. So how do we do that without intimidating, without isolating? We want to show the love, and that's really about what user experience is that to ensure that people it's an easy experience, and I'm sure it's the same for you.
Absolutely. If they don't use it, we're stuck at the first hurdle,
especially straight after, God forbid, an accident.
Exactly. And we don't want them getting frustrated, especially with capturing receipts as well. It's such crucial information that the usability has to be lovely and smooth and bug free and not time out. And all these things do take a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of time to get right.
Yeah, and we don't have £100 million to throw at it. And
you might not. No, I definitely don't. No.
But I think that's the thing. So, have you started? Have you gone through user testing, and have tried it out on drivers and things
Yeah,
so
we
far?
have, and some great feedback. It's a very simple app,
Oh,
very
I'm going
kind of
to stop you for a second there. The feedback on ONO has been fantastic. I think we know that. Everybody that's seen it and used it, no one said no to it. I think I've even written a letter saying that we're happy
yeah,
to roll it out because it was fantastic. So we're talking about how hard the process was. We know it works.
yeah, absolutely, and it is getting good feedback. And we're
Yeah.
taking about 5 minutes to register an accident, and it comes straight through in real time to the fleet owner. So the actual application is getting great feedback,
You
and
haven't been out there causing accidents, have you? I just
no, but I do park up at a garage that are having a lot of accidents, and I go, "Oh, would you mind just testing out this app for me?" And we try and make it quite gamified,
right.
and yeah, and just simple, really simple. The dashboard's a little bit more complex and more data driven, and kind of that back and forward of data on the dashboard. But for the driver, we just want it quick, simple, and easy.
Well, I think this is a good point to take a little breather from our little technical talking in
Oh,
the bits
okay,
and
yes.
pieces. And if you come on the podcast, the Easy Listening podcast, you've got to answer some questions. So we're going to leave the quiz to the end. We've got the Easy Tax quiz at the end,
Okay.
but we need to know a little bit about you. So here's an easy one. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
If you could be an expert in anything that you're not already an expert in, what would it be?
Within my industry?
No, anywhere. So
Oh,
we
okay.
know that you're a super expert in lots of things,
Yeah,
but if you could become like that, an expert in anything, what would it be?
absolutely financials.
Really?
I mean, almost like maths wizardry. That's what I would want. Somebody that I could just look at something, analyze the financials, log it in my brain, because it's hard work for me at the moment, but I enjoy it. So if I could just become an absolute expert in that, oh, brilliant.
That's an interesting. Well, you know, I've always said, and anybody that listens to me will know that I do this one. You know, financial literacy for any entrepreneur is an absolute must. Not you don't have to be an expert. It's great that you'd want to be. I think the truth is, it's a terrible thing to say this. Numerate people that are good with numbers, it does often come naturally. You can see the way people's brains work. A lot of my friends who are very numerate, for instance, are very good with languages. A lot of people that are very numerate, very good with music, which I've always found interesting. So there must be something about the synapses. I know that in my experience, sometimes I've looked at numbers on a page and they speak to me in a, you know, I'm a bit weird though, because I sometimes see numbers in kind of 3D. So I'll see it as a 360 model.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I think the terrible unfairness, and I remember this at school, is that there are some people who are just naturally aligned with numbers, but everybody, you know, I don't care what you do, whether you're mending toilets, whether you're an electrician, whether you're driving, a little bit of financial literacy, which your accountant should help you with, is really important. So
it's crucial actually, because it's the difference between making money and losing money. If you can't understand the cost of sale, you're failing at the first hurdle, and you have to make an effort to learn this.
Anybody can be taught the basics, and we try as a company to. Do you know what I don't like doing is we don't like producing like a tax return for somebody and just saying like, here's your tax return. And I know people get really annoyed with me sometimes because I want to explain it to them, and not everybody wants to have it explained, which is why my staff don't let me out there that much anymore. But I think it's really important. Anybody can learn the basics. Anybody can learn money in, money out, what's left over. And I think that sometimes it's because people don't want to know. Because if you're you know, if you're earning 20 and you're spending 22, sometimes people don't need to know, you know, don't want to know that. But I think it's really important. I mean, yeah, I think pure numeracy, a lot of, most of the staff sitting outside our door that are out in our offices at the moment are naturally numerate anyway, and are just work on that. But everybody can learn the basics. And And by the way, everybody out there, if you don't know, if you do struggle with the basics, find out your accountant and ask him to go through the process and what he does for you and why, because we will always do that. But I mean,
And don't give up,
no,
because I can look at my figures one day, and especially with valuations and going for funding and working out my outgoings and revenue. And remember, this is all predictive.
Yep.
And you look at it and you go, one day you go, hold on, I need to really get my head around it. And then 2 days later, it all jumps out and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's why that. So just, I always say, don't give up.
That's really good
keep
advice.
looking, because it might be your frame of mind, but you will get there eventually, because numbers don't lie. It's maths, it's facts and figures. You've got to put the effort in.
Well, the universe is created through mathematics. It's, everything, petals on a flower to, and I think, oh God, I'm sounding really sad, aren't I? But it's.
No, I watched this great seminar, this guy called Dr. Jerry last week, and he was talking about base 12 mathematics. I had no idea what this was all about, but I was interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know I'm unusually chatty for an accountant, so I do like to involve myself in the other side. And I love English. I love the English language. I love to use it. But I think even that is related. There's, most languages have a base and an extension. You learn that
formulaic.
Yes, it is, and,
Yeah.
and that still comes back to mathematics. So anyway, that's as boring as I'd like to get. Here's my next big question. If you had to be anything other than what you are in your career, what would it be? And what did you want to be as a child? Can we keep it clean?
Absolutely. Hollywood actress.
Well,
I mean,
you are.
I'm made for film and television. I always wanted to be an actress as a child and a teacher. And then I tried the teacher thing and realised, not enough money in this.
Well, and do you know what's interesting, actually? Because there's no reason why you can't use those skills. You absolutely, and actually this comes on, we're going to go back to the business talk now, but why wouldn't you need acting skills to do what you do? You do get involved in pitches, you do networking, and all of these things have that
kind
ability.
of persona. That's because I read a book the other day, The 48 Laws of Power, and one of them was, you are not born brave. Nobody's born brave. You have to learn it. There is something within you that you have to make a conscious decision to become brave. And I thought, do you know what? That is true, because there is a nervousness and you think, I'm going to be brave today. You put your brave pants on and you go out there and you do it, and you may not feel brave because it's not natural, but you do it anyway.
Well, we've had this conversation before, because you have the same strange, I don't think it's a skill quirk that I have, which is you don't really get nervous before public speaking.
No.
And and by the way, I don't think you're not showing off, because there is some switch in my brain that if I'm talking to a group of people, it's like I'm talking to one. So I never really recognise the difference between one and a thousand or whatever. And I've spoken with you before, and you don't have that nervousness at all beforehand. You just pop up and do that. So, and I think that's, I don't know what that is. I think it's because I always get that feeling from you that you like people.
I love people.
Yeah.
I love people, and I treat everybody the same, and everybody has a skill and everybody has a story, and talk to me. Yeah. Let's talk.
So here we are. Here's the next worky based question, and something you do extraordinarily well is networking, which is, well, you're the first person on our podcast.
Yay!
What is the key to good networking? Be
yourself and listen to the other people, because you can.
Sorry, what was it you said?
No. Pardon? It's interesting. Sometimes we're so keen on, hi, I'm Renee, I'm from ONO, getting everything that I want out, that you actually might not be pitching the right level to the person that you're talking to. So I always say, listen to them, let them talk, and don't be afraid of interrupting a group of people. I've done that a few times.
Seen it.
Just hiya, and just join in conversations, but listen to
I have
them.
noticed what you do, though, because you will interrupt that group of people, but you will then say, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah. And why are
And
you here?
yeah, why are you here? And
Yeah.
you're actually engaging and listening, which I think is the. I mean, I have. Am I allowed to, David? Am I allowed to do a little bit of Gary's advice on networking since it's my podcast?
100%.
Thank you.
Please, what are your advice?
I
for
tell you
networking?
what, the most important is: do not get hung up on anybody else's level of importance.
Love
Love
that.
them all.
Yeah.
One of the last things I am always interested in what people do, in how they do it, in what their history is, in what their. I mean, I'm always interested in what people do for a living and people in private hire, what their trade, what their trade is and what they do. Fascinating. It's because I love business, so I do it. But the most important thing about networking is never judge. And also, don't. The first question is not what's your position in the company, because you don't know who's on the way down and who's on the way up. You don't know who's going to introduce you in the future. I've got people. I mean, I've been around a long time. I have people that I used to go and visit, some of the bigger operators that I dealt with, who were, junior staff that have now running big businesses. And they don't forget that they were treated the same when they met me 10 years ago as they get treated now. And I think that's the most important thing, is love everyone.
Absolutely. And I don't think I've ever asked anybody like what position they are in the company, because to me it's absolutely irrelevant.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that as well, for anyone that's sort of younger and trying to network, what would you say? Have you ever been in a position where you are intimidated by that person's reaction, and how do you navigate that? So if they are focused on that.
Oh, good question.
It is a really good question, and it can be really intimidating as well. I've been in situations where, most recently, I was at a female founders event. I'm quite headstrong and always up for a chat, and there was a gentleman there that was very derogatory towards women. I was like,
Why was he there?
Exactly. I think the free coffee,
Okay.
which always helps. And I always say, keep your cool. Don't react immediately, because it can be very instinctive to kind of have your back put up. But just take a second to actually listen to what they've got to say, and don't always react immediately. That's what I said, and that's what I did. I asked him a couple more questions, and I reflected the questions back to him, and I asked him to kind of explain himself and give me some reasons and tell me a bit more about him as a person. And then you kind of realize there's some common ground somewhere, and they actually start to think about how they've reacted immediately. But sometimes, to be honest, you're just going to get, I can't swear. You are just going to get dickheads. So you need to just bat them away quickly.
So that's really interesting, because my experience, I always go from this basis, and I think people think that it's a put on act, but I'm sure. So David, my BDM, I've known for a long, long time, since he was a tiny little lad, and I genuinely love everyone. It's not an act. And I think that it's really important, especially with networking, is to not care is a skill that you need to develop. So if somebody, exactly as Renee says, if you've got somebody, I often find, tax actually does make people upset and angry. I don't know if you've noticed that.
I mean, it's not your fault.
No, but I see it as our job when people come in. Let's talk about, a client who comes in and is terribly upset about his bill, is terribly upset about this and terribly upset about that. You have to care. You have to look at it from their perspective. So I think that what you've got to do with people like that, you do have to do exactly as Renee says, and listen to them, find the common ground. But if it turns out that they are a dickhead, you've got to go, actually, the best revenge is a life well lived. You carry on being a dickhead, and I'm going to get on with it. And today's hero is yesterday's villain. And I think that sometimes you only learn these things with time. And so here's my big advice for the day. Remove yourself from toxic people. If somebody is generally toxic, there's generally hate in their heart.
I always label people in two categories: radiators and drains.
Yep.
And you want to be around the radiators, whether they radiate energy or good thoughts or kindness or intelligence. Not everybody radiates this high level of energy, which I seem to have constantly. but they radiate something, or you get the drains and they just suck everything from you. You have to remove those people from your life.
I think for me, the drains are often because somebody's in a bad situation, and I always feel
I'm very considerate thinking, yeah.
well, yeah, but as an accountant, it's my job to, I always want to
Yeah.
fix. I want to help. I want to fix, and I do think that if there's a reason for let's just say that you get one of the isms from somebody, whether it's sexism or racism or whatever it is, where it's from. Very often it comes from a place of pain, and I think sometimes you've got to have a look at people and see where it's from. If you get to the bottom of that and they're actually a toxic individual, get away. And actually, and so that's my advice: is never take things personally.
Yeah, definitely.
Always investigate and find out. And if you get to a point where you're really not going to keep them happy, guess what? You can't keep everyone happy, and that's the truth. You can only do the best you can do.
Absolutely.
So there's our networking advice. So investment and funding rounds. Give us a little, because it's something that I tend to do as an accountant. I'm part of the team or part of the people that put the figures together. What's it like actually doing that, the funding rounds and getting the investment and pushing and fighting?
For me, at this stage, it's brilliant because I'm naive, I'm new, it's my first time, I'm enjoying all the hurdles, I'm loving the questions because I've never done this before. I'm the kind of girl, give me £1 and I'll make you two.
Yeah.
I've always ran businesses where we've not had to get funding, we've just bought an asset and make it work for us immediately. This is a whole new ball game, especially with technology, very high front-ended costs, and you need a good team there working, the longevity of a team, which is expensive. So funding is crucial, and it's about asking for advice, asking for help, getting people to look over your figures, not kind of shying away from some tough conversations, and doing it again and again and again and again, because the more you talk to people about your funding journey and the more you kind of open the door, the easier it does become.
I think resilience is important.
Yeah, and do you know what? You're not going to suit everybody.
No.
Like I say, never take it personally. Like you've just got to keep going. You might not be right for them, and that comes back to kind of the acting analogy that you're not the right fit for every part.
Well, if anybody's seen my recent tweet, there's Gary's 4 rules of business, and one of them is activity is everything. And I think that anybody that I know as an accountant that is an entrepreneur will have that resilience to either go back again and again and again. And you know what they always say, as long as you get up one more time than you're put down, that's the secret of life. But also by not, having the resilience to keep at it. A skill is also knowing when to give up.
Yeah, you've got to know you've got a good product.
Yeah.
And it just might not be a market fit and it might not be an investor fit.
Exactly.
That's all. Look at Canva. The lady was turned down millions of investment. She was trying to get investment. Now it's a multi-billion-pound company.
Yeah.
And investors just shut the door on her.
Never forget someone said no to the Beatles.
But they're kicking themselves.
I think they're dead. But yeah. And finally on the business stuff, you've worked with so many small businesses over your years. What would you say was what you're most proud of in that history of working with business? And come on, give us that. What's your big piece of business advice for all the listeners out there?
Oh my gosh. Okay. What we spoke about earlier, you have to get up every day. You have to have a keen eye on your figures, really know your margins. That's crucial. And in regards to who I'm most proud of, I do a lot of work with female small business owners, and that's stemmed from my bridal industry days. And going into these companies and like hairdressers and semi-permanent makeup artists and anaesthetists, like all these different, very kind of feminine and glamorous areas, because I enjoy that side of being a woman. They get up and they go and they do it, and they don't realise they're actually running really successful businesses because they don't feel like a business person, because it's not the traditional put a suit on, go into the office and have lots of people to manage, but yet they're running companies that are turning over a lot of money. They have 5 or 6 members of staff. They have processes that they have to put into place. And sometimes you just got to pat them on the back and go, look what you've achieved.
I mean, one of the things that I do find with a lot of small businesses is imposter syndrome, is people that are actually really successful. We were talking before about the new initiative that we're doing, which is a small pond, which is that there's no sin in being a big fish in a small pond. And I think actually the problem is when you go on the internet, everybody's about, here's how to make £1 bazillion and what success is. And actually, there's some people that aren't internet based or not even technology based, but there's a lot of people that have really nice businesses and should be proud of who they are and what they know.
A lovely lifestyle business. And also, I'm proud of all the employees because they don't get enough credit. It's all very well trying to put across that it's great to be a boss and you should really be owning your own company. No, let's give a cheer to the employees that are there running and helping run these businesses day to day, 9 till 5, and putting in all this effort.
I am nothing without the team behind me. I think it's important to recognise that. So good. Right. Quick question. I'd like to thank Nathan, our content writer, for this one. We know where his head lies. What's your favourite quality street?
Strawberry cream.
Oh, really?
Elite, Renee. Elite level chocolate.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't even think I hesitated.
You didn't hesitate at
Give
all.
Give me
there.
all them strawberry creams.
It's the little round toffee coin things that I like.
Oh, trash for me.
No, my teeth. They're the ones that stay in the tin.
Oh, right. Well, we should share quality from now on. We're going to share quality street. And here we are. It's your last meal. By the way, this is theoretical. It's your last meal. What would it be? I want a starter, a main course, and the dessert. And you're allowed 2 drinks.
Oh, am I? Okay, drinks. 2 bottles of Laurent Perrier rosé.
I thought that was coming.
Straight off. Starter has to be a prawn and avocado cocktail.
Nice, cool.
But the avocado has to be like ripe.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll be disappointed. Steak, medium, with mashed potato, mushrooms, and more king prawns. I'd love that. Like a surf and turf.
Are you a bloke in 1987?
I think so, yeah. Well, wait till you hear my dessert.
Go on then.
Black Forest Gatto.
Oh my gosh. Welcome to the 80s. I've got to say, I wouldn't say no to that in any way, shape or form.
Oh, yeah, and it's all washed down with Laurent Perrier rosé. Oh, lunch, anyone?
Yeah, we've got 3 salads sitting over there waiting for something to finish.
No, it's good.
And finally, you have to do the Eazi listening quiz, which is about Eazi sex, which is we're going to be asking everybody this, and it's just kind of a way of what do people really know about. So here we are.
No, I didn't do any research.
No, good.
We're going to have a leaderboard. No, I'm
joking. Please.
Right.
Okay, I'll take it seriously.
It's going to be like the Top Gear leaderboard, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, okay. What year was Eazi Tax formed?
1993.
That's good. Yeah, the original Gary Jacobs outing was 1996, and the limited company known as Driver Tax that became Eazi Tax was actually formed in 1998. So that's got it in the 90s or 90s. Boy, that's got it. Okay. Okay, here's the one. You've got to guess this one. Which one of these is false?
Okay.
You ready?
Right, I'm listening.
Gary can ride a horse. Gary is a herpetologist. Gary is trained in goat husbandry. And Gary can read Aramaic.
Just as a FYI to all of the people like me, can you explain what a herpetologist is, please?
Well, if I wasn't a herpetologist, I wouldn't know. Okay, a herpetologist is somebody that is particularly expert in lizards and snakes. So in reptiles in general. So I'll ask that again. Gary can ride a horse.
Yeah.
Gary's a herpetologist. Gary's trained in goat husbandry.
My images right now.
Gary can read Aramaic. One of those is a lie. 3 of those are true.
Okay, Gary, no offence, but I cannot envision you on a horse.
Interesting. Well, the answer is...
I can envision you with a goat.
Are you trying to say because I'm tiny that you can see me riding a little goat? around
No,
the
I could just imagine you're like, come on, goats.
Well, actually, the one thing that I'm not is trained in goat husbandry.
Oh,
But actually, we are signed up to do a goat husbandry course later in the year.
there we go. It's your calling. I
yeah,
can feel it.
Yeah, I can ride a horse. I'm a herpetologist.
Imagine all that milk.
And I can read Aramaic, strange enough, which is anyway. We thought that's an interesting one because it's people wouldn't expect that of their accountant, normally, would they?
I
So there
like
we go.
it.
And 2 more questions. Who was Easy Taxi's first employee? It's an easy one.
Jolene.
There we are.
Jolene.
And this one, we've got to ask this one because it's on, thanks to my marketing people, it seems to be on everything that ever gets published.
Oh, no.
Where was Easy Taxi? Well, no, you'll have to get it wrong because why could you? No, absolutely. Who knows? Where was Easy Taxi's first office?
In your back garden.
Ah, see, there we are. That's right. It was a converted garage at the bottom of my garden.
Brilliant. I don't think you need a leaderboard because I think I'm just going to stay top.
I think you stay top. Listen, you're always going to be top in ours.
Yeah.
So all it really leaves me to say is to thank everybody for listening to us, for joining in. There are going to be, we have in the next podcast, David Lloyd from the National Private Hire and Taxi Association coming on.
Brilliant.
Look on our. Yeah, well, we have all the big hitters. There will be a listing of the other people that will be coming on the next 8 podcasts, which will be done over the next few weeks and months. I'd like to thank Jamie, our producer, David, our business development manager, for doing all the tech stuff, for Jolene to helping out with the tech stuff. But most important, thank you, Renee Rogers, for your company, for your advice, and for sharing your skills.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been lovely having you, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Steak?
Yeah, why not?